The rain hammered against the glass corridors of Rhodes Corporation Tower long after midnight, each drop a metronome counting down to something Marcus Lambert couldn't name yet. He pushed his janitor's cart down the empty hallway on the 42nd floor, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like dying insects. His 7-year-old daughter, Adelaide, sat on a bench near the elevator, swinging her legs and clutching her worn stuffed rabbit. The rabbit had been white once, back when Helen was alive. Now it was gray from 1,000 nights like this one, watching her father mop floors in a building where decisions worth millions were made by people who never saw him. Marcus Lambert had learned to make himself invisible. At 36, he stood 6'2" with the kind of broad shoulders that came from years of discipline, not gym memberships. His dark brown hair was cut military short, though nobody at Rhodes Corporation knew why. His hands, calloused from pushing mops and carrying trash, bore faint scars that spoke of a different life. Those scars told stories he never shared. He had been part of something once, a counterterrorism unit so classified it had no official name. They called it retrieval operations, a sanitized term for missions where politicians' children were saved from basements in war zones, where hostages were pulled from compounds that didn't exist on any map. Marcus had been good at it. Too good. He could read a room in seconds, neutralize threats before they escalated, carry a wounded civilian 20 meters through hostile territory without rest. Then Helen happened. Helen, with her bright laugh and her belief that Marcus could be more than a weapon. They married quietly. She got pregnant. Marcus promised her he'd leave the life behind after one more mission. But Helen never heard that promise fulfilled. Complications during Adelaide's birth took her away. The doctors used words like hemorrhage and cardiac arrest. But Marcus only heard one truth. His wife was gone, and he was holding a newborn who needed him more than any mission ever had. So he disappeared. Not from Adelaide, but from the world that knew him as an operator. He became a janitor. The pay was terrible, the hours were long, but it let him stay close to his daughter. He worked nights at Rhodes Corporation Tower, one of those glass monuments to wealth and power that dominated Manhattan's skyline. During the day, he was Adelaide's father. At night, while she slept in the employee lounge or did homework under the glow of vending machines, he cleaned offices where decisions worth millions were made by people who never saw him. Adelaide Lambert was everything her father was not. Where Marcus was quiet, she was curious. Where he concealed, she revealed. At 7, she had her mother's blonde hair and her father's gray eyes. She was shy around other children, but fearless with her father. She asked him questions about everything: why birds flew south, how tall buildings stayed standing, whether stars knew people were watching them. Marcus answered what he could and invented answers when he couldn't. She was his whole world, and keeping her safe meant keeping her innocent of the violence he'd left behind. The attack happened without warning. 3 men stepped out from the stairwell shadows. They moved with purpose toward the little girl. Adelaide's eyes went wide as saucers. Her scream shattered the silence like breaking glass. "Daddy, please stop them!" Marcus turned. Instinct replaced thought. 6 seconds. That's all it took. A pivot, an elbow strike to the first man's throat, precise and calculated, the kind of strike that didn't kill, but absolutely incapacitated. The man went down gasping, a precise punch that dropped the second, his fist connecting with the solar plexus with enough force to fold the attacker like a lawn chair. A sweeping kick that left the third unconscious on the polished floor, his head hitting marble with a sound that echoed through the empty corridor. 6 seconds. 3 men, done. Adelaide stood frozen, her blue eyes wide with shock. Then she ran, not away, but toward her father. She crashed into his arms, and he held her, his heart hammering against his ribs. She was crying, her small body shaking. "It's okay, sweetheart, it's okay. Daddy's here." But it wasn't okay. Marcus knew these weren't random thugs. Their stance, their coordination, their equipment. These were professionals. Someone had sent them. And worse, someone had sent them to a place where his daughter was. He looked at the security camera blinking red in the corner. Then he looked at the 3 unconscious men. He had maybe 5 minutes before backup arrived, before questions got asked that he couldn't answer. He pulled Adelaide close and moved fast. He knew where the camera blind spots were. He knew which stairwell had a broken lock. By the time security arrived, they'd find 3 confused men with no explanation and no janitor in sight. That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat in their tiny apartment 8 blocks from the tower, watching the street below through torn curtains. The apartment was all he could afford on a janitor's salary. 1 bedroom with water stains on the ceiling, a kitchenette where the refrigerator hummed like a dying engine, furniture from thrift stores that didn't quite match. Adelaide slept fitfully in the bedroom, crying out twice. Both times he was there, holding her hand, promising her monsters weren't real. But he knew better. Monsters were very real, and they knew where he lived. Morning came with sirens, not police sirens, something else. Adelaide was eating cereal at their small kitchen table when Marcus heard them. The kind of motorcade that meant government business. He pulled back the curtain. 5 black SUVs with government plates blocked the street. Men in tactical vests were establishing a perimeter. And stepping out of an armored Cadillac in the center of it all was Victoria Rhodes. She wore a red dress with a V-neck cut, her blonde hair pulled back, her expression unreadable behind designer sunglasses. But her presence here in this neighborhood where rust stains ran down the sides of buildings and laundry hung on fire escapes was impossible to miss. Neighbors poured onto their stoops. People pulled out phones. A CEO didn't visit the poor side of town with a government escort unless something seismic was happening. Victoria Rhodes ran Rhodes Corporation the way generals ran campaigns, with strategy, discipline, and an emotional distance that kept everyone at arm's length. At 33, she was younger than most of the board members who tried to undermine her. She wore her authority like armor, always impeccably dressed, her blonde hair styled perfectly, her red dresses tailored to project power without apology. She walked through her building like she owned it, because she did. But power came with ghosts. When Victoria was 14, she'd been taken. Her father was a senator with enemies who knew that the fastest way to break a man was through his children. She'd spent 4 days in darkness, listening to footsteps above her head, wondering if she'd ever see sunlight again. Then someone came. She never saw his face clearly, just felt strong arms lifting her, heard a calm voice saying, "You're safe now," as he carried her through what felt like miles of forest. By the time the official rescue team arrived, she was already free, and her rescuer was gone. The trauma specialist her father hired said she'd forget in time. She didn't. She remembered the feeling of being helpless, and she'd built her entire life around never feeling that way again. Control became her religion. Trust became a luxury she couldn't afford. And the janitor who worked in her building at night, he was invisible to her, just another part of the machinery that kept her empire running. Until the night 3 men came for his daughter. Victoria walked straight to Marcus's building. 2 men in dark suits flanked her. She climbed the 4 flights of stairs like she was ascending to a boardroom. When she knocked on Marcus's door, the sound was steady and professional. Adelaide looked at her father with questions in her eyes. Marcus put a finger to his lips and opened the door. Victoria stood in the hallway, her heels sinking slightly into carpet that hadn't been replaced since the 80s. Up close, without the distance of corporate hierarchy, Marcus could see she was younger than he'd thought. And scared, trying to hide it, but scared. "Mr.
Lambert,
We need to talk. Immediately. Marcus stepped aside. Adelaide peeked out from behind him, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight. Victoria's gaze softened for just a moment when she saw the little girl. Then the mask returned. About last night. Marcus's tone was neutral. What about it? Victoria removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. So you admit it was you? I admit I protected my daughter from 3 men who had no business being there. Victoria studied him. Really studied him. She saw the military posture he couldn't fully hide, the way his eyes tracked her security detail outside, the scars on his knuckles, the calm that radiated from someone who'd been in worse situations. No ordinary janitor drops 3 trained operatives in 6 seconds, Mr. Lambert. No ordinary CEO shows up at a janitor's apartment with government security, Miss Rhodes. They stared at each other. Adelaide pulled on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, who's the fancy lady? Victoria's expression cracked just slightly. She knelt down to Adelaide's eye level. I'm Victoria. I work in the building where your daddy works. He did something very brave last night. He's always brave. Adelaide said it simply, like stating the sky was blue. Victoria stood. May I sit down? Marcus gestured to their worn couch. Victoria sat, looking strange and out of place among their thrift store furniture and patched walls. Her security stayed in the hallway. When the door closed, she spoke. I've been followed for 3 months. Professional surveillance. Someone breached my personal security network. At first, my team thought it was corporate espionage. Then we started finding patterns. The same faces at different events. Cars that appeared too consistently. Last week, my head of security showed me footage of 3 men conducting reconnaissance at Rhodes Corporation. She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. The same 3 men who attacked your daughter last night. Marcus felt his blood run cold. They weren't after Adelaide. No. They were after me. But I wasn't there. I changed my schedule last minute. Security believes they were trying to grab leverage. Your daughter was in the wrong place. Or the right place, depending on your perspective. Victoria leaned forward. Mr. Lambert, whoever sent those men knows you stopped them. They know you're not what you appear to be. My security ran your background. Your employment history only goes back 7 years. Before that, nothing. No college records, no prior addresses, no digital footprint. You're a ghost. I'm a janitor. No, you're someone who became a janitor. There's a difference. She pulled out a phone, showed him footage. These 3, do you recognize them? Marcus studied the faces. Military training, private contractor build, well-funded mercenaries. How do you know? I know. Victoria put the phone away. My head of security thinks this is about me, about something from my past. When I was 14, I was kidnapped. It's not public information. My father paid a fortune to keep it quiet. But whoever's behind this knows, and they're recreating it. Why? I don't know. Revenge against my father. Corporate sabotage. All I know is they're escalating. The 3 men you stopped won't be the last. Marcus looked at Adelaide, who was pressing her nose against the window, making fog patterns with her breath. What do you want from me? Protection. For both of us. My security can keep me safe in controlled environments, but you saw a threat and neutralized it in seconds. I need someone who can do that if things go wrong. I'm not a bodyguard, Miss Rhodes. No, you're something better. You're someone they won't see coming. Marcus stood. I appreciate the offer, but I left that life behind for a reason. I have a daughter who needs a father, not a weapon. Victoria stood too. Then think about this. If they know about you now, do you really believe they'll leave you alone? You humiliated whoever sent those men. That's not something people like that forgive." The words hung in the air. Marcus knew she was right. He'd broken the first rule of staying hidden: never draw attention. But given the same situation, he'd do it again in a heartbeat. "I need time." "You don't have time." Victoria moved to the door. "My security team has swept this building. You're clean for now. But Mr. Lambert, when they come back, and they will, don't hesitate to call." She handed him a card. "That number reaches me directly, day or night." She left. The motorcade pulled away 15 minutes later. Adelaide turned from the window. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Marcus pulled her into a hug. "No, sweetheart. Everything's going to be fine." But that night, he didn't sleep. He sat at the window with the lights off, watching the street. At 2 a.m, he heard it. The faint whir of a drone outside their window. Small, expensive, equipped with a camera lens that glinted in the streetlight. Marcus moved fast. He grabbed the broom from the kitchen, opened the window in one smooth motion, and threw it. The broom handle caught the drone perfectly, sending it spiraling into the alley below. By the time he got downstairs, it was gone. Someone had retrieved it. He texted the number Victoria had given him. "They're watching." Her response came immediately. "Pack a bag, my team is en route." "Not yet." "Lambert, don't be stupid." "Not stupid. Careful. If we run, they'll know they've got us scared. They've got drones on your apartment. You should be scared." Scared and running are different things. There was a long pause, then her response. "You're insufferable. And you're used to people doing what you say." "Fine, but my team is stationed 2 blocks away. If anything happens, they're there in 90 seconds. Noted. Marcus went back upstairs, but he didn't sleep. He watched, and he thought about Victoria's words, about how running from the past never worked, about how some things, once started, had to be finished. The next day, Victoria showed up at his work, not the apartment, the tower. She found him on the 37th floor, emptying trash in an executive conference room. She closed the door behind her. No security this time, just her. "I've been thinking about what you said." "Which part?" "The part about being a father, not a weapon." She paused. "I understand that. More than you might think." Marcus looked at her, really looked, saw past the expensive clothes and the corporate armor, saw someone who'd been scared at 14 and never quite stopped being scared. "What happened when you were taken?" Victoria's composure cracked. She sat in one of the conference chairs. 4 days in a basement. They fed me once a day, told me my father didn't care enough to pay, that I was going to die there. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. Then someone came. Not the police, not FBI. Someone else. He got me out, carried me through a forest. I remember his arms felt safe. I remember thinking if I just held on, I'd be okay. She looked up. I never saw his face. He was gone by the time the official rescue team arrived. For years I tried to find him, but there were no records. My father said some operations were too classified to trace, that I should be grateful and move on. She laughed bitterly. I never moved on. I built an empire instead, became powerful enough that no one could take me again. But it didn't work. I'm still that scared 14-year-old in the dark. You're not. Marcus said it quietly but firmly. That girl survived. This woman thrived. Did she? Or did she just build higher walls? Before Marcus could answer, his phone rang. Adelaide's school. His daughter was sick. Nothing serious, but could he pick her up? He apologized to Victoria and left, but her words stayed with him. About walls, about survival, about the difference between the two. That evening, while Adelaide slept with a mild fever, Marcus received another text. Not from Victoria. Unknown number. 2 words. Check your door. He opened it. An envelope. Inside, a photo. Adelaide's school, taken today. Someone had been watching. Marcus's hands shook with rage. He called Victoria's number. They photographed my daughter. Come to my office, now. Bring Adelaide. It's 11 at night. I don't care. If they're bold enough to surveil a school, they're bold enough to act. My building has security. Yours doesn't. Marcus looked at his sleeping daughter. Then he made the call no parent wants to make. He woke her gently. Hey, sweetheart. We need to go somewhere safe tonight. Adelaide, still foggy with fever, didn't question. She trusted him. That trust was everything. Victoria's office occupied the entire top floor of Rhodes Corporation Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a space designed to intimidate. But when Marcus arrived with Adelaide wrapped in a blanket, Victoria had transformed it. A couch was made up with pillows and a comforter. Hot chocolate waited on a side table. Children's books were stacked nearby. I called my assistant. She has nieces. Adelaide perked up at the hot chocolate. While she drank and paged through a picture book, the adults talked in low voices across the room. My security team found the drone you destroyed. Military grade. The kind that costs 6 figures. Whoever's funding this isn't playing. I know. There's more. We traced the mercenaries you stopped. They were hired through a shell company that connects to 15 other shell companies. But at the end of the trail, a name. Victoria paused. Derek Rispin. Marcus's blood ran cold. Are you certain? You know him? I know of him. He's a fixer, the kind powerful people call when they need problems to disappear. If he's involved, this isn't about money or business. It's personal. Personal how? Marcus hesitated, then decided truth was the only option. 20 years ago, I was part of a counter-terrorism unit. We did extractions, hostage rescue, the kind of missions that never made the news. One of those missions involved a senator's daughter who'd been taken by a criminal organization. Derek Rispin was the middleman. We disrupted his operation. He lost a lot of money. He swore revenge against everyone involved. Victoria's face went pale. What was the senator's name? Rhodes. Senator Malcolm Rhodes. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Victoria sat down hard, her legs suddenly unable to support her. You were the one who saved me. Marcus nodded slowly. I didn't know it was you. I didn't know you were Malcolm Rhodes's daughter. You were just a scared kid who needed help. You carried me through the forest. You told me stories to keep me calm. He said my father loved me very much, and I'd see him soon. I remember. Victoria's eyes filled with tears she wouldn't let fall. I've been looking for you for 20 years, and you've been here, cleaning my building. I didn't know, Victoria. I've extracted dozens of people. I never learned their names. It was safer that way, for them and for me. When I left the unit, I left everything behind, including the faces of the people I saved. She stood abruptly, walked to the window. Her reflection ghosted against the city lights below, a woman caught between past and present. So Derek Rispin is doing this because of me. Because my father refused to pay ransom 20 years ago, and your team came instead. Revenge delayed is revenge amplified. He's had 2 decades to build resources, plan this. Then he's not just after me. He's after you, too. And Adelaide. Marcus looked at his daughter, who'd fallen asleep on the couch, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. I won't let him near her. We won't. Victoria turned from the window, and for the first time since walking into his apartment that morning, Marcus saw something other than fear in her eyes. He saw determination. He saw partnership. "You saved me once. Let me help save her." The next 72 hours moved like a freight train with failing brakes. Victoria's security team swept Rhodes Corporation Tower and found 2 more surveillance devices. They identified 3 potential breach points. They discovered that Derek had people inside the company, a maintenance worker who'd been installed 6 months ago, a mid-level executive who'd been turned through blackmail. But Marcus and Victoria had advantages Derek didn't expect. Victoria had resources. Marcus had training. And together, they had something Derek couldn't plan for. They cared about the same thing: keeping Adelaide safe. Marcus found the GPS tracker on Adelaide's backpack on the 3rd day. It had been planted at school, small enough to hide in the lining. He showed it to Victoria in her office while Adelaide colored at a desk nearby, oblivious to the dangers circling her. This is military grade. He's not just watching, he's tracking her every movement. Victoria's jaw tightened. "My team is working on tracing his supply chain. If we can cut off his resources..." "It won't be enough. Derek's patient. He's been planning this for 20 years. "Then what do we do?" "We go on offense. Make him react instead of us." "How?" "By giving him what he wants." "Me?" "Absolutely not!" Victoria's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Adelaide looked up from her coloring, sensing tension. Victoria softened her tone. "You're not bait, Marcus. We'll find another way." "There isn't another way. He wants revenge. For his operation. For the money he lost. Maybe for something else we don't know about yet." "Then we bring in federal authorities. FBI has resources. Who he might have already compromised. You said it yourself. He's had 20 years. How many people do you think he's bought in that time?" Victoria opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Because he was right, and they both knew it. "At least let me help. My security can..." "Your security let 3 men get to Adelaide. How can I trust them?" The words came out harsher than Marcus intended. Victoria flinched like he'd struck her. "You're right. My security failed. But Marcus, you can't do this alone. I've done worse alone. Not with your daughter's life at stake. Not anymore." They stared at each other across the desk. The silence stretched. Then Adelaide's small voice cut through it. "Daddy, the fancy lady is scared. Like you get scared sometimes. We should help each other. That's what you taught me." Both adults turned to look at the 7-year-old holding a purple crayon. Her gray eyes, so much like her father's, filled with a wisdom that shouldn't exist in someone so young. "You're right, sweetheart." Marcus's voice was softer now. He looked at Victoria. "We should help each other. But Adelaide needs to be somewhere safe, somewhere Derek can't reach. FBI has safe houses, which might be compromised. I need someone I can trust, someone outside the system. Do you have someone like that?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I have someone." He made a call that night to a number he hadn't dialed in 7 years. A voice answered on the 3rd ring, gruff and suspicious. "This better be good. It's 3 a.m. "It's Marcus." Silence, then recognition. "Jesus Christ, Marcus Lambert? I thought you were dead." "Just hiding. I need a favor." The man on the other end, call sign Hawk, real name classified even to Marcus, listened as Marcus explained the situation. When he finished, Hawk was quiet for a long moment. "You're asking me to protect a 7-year-old girl from a fixer who's been planning revenge for 2 decades. "Yes." "And you trust me with this because..." "Because you carried Thompson 6 miles through enemy territory with a bullet in your leg. Because you've never left anyone behind. Because you're the only person I trust more than myself." Another silence. Then Hawk sighed. Where and when? Tomorrow night. I'll send coordinates. She better like mac and cheese. That's all I know how to make. She'll eat anything. Just keep her safe. Marcus, if this goes sideways, it won't. You don't know that. I know that if it does, I'll make sure Derek Rispin regrets every second of the last 20 years. The call ended. Marcus turned to find Victoria standing in the doorway. She'd heard everything. Who was that? Someone from my old life. Someone who won't fail. You sound certain. I am. Hawks pulled me out of more hell than I can count. He'll protect Adelaide like she's his own. And what about you? What about me? If you're planning to use yourself as bait, I'm planning to end this. There's a difference. Victoria walked into the room, closed the door behind her. Then I'm coming with you. No, you're not. Yes, I am. This is my company, my past, my responsibility. It's my daughter, and it's my life Derek's trying to destroy. I have resources you don't, connections, legal authority, which won't mean anything if he kills you. Then teach me. What? Teach me to fight, to defend myself. I've spent 20 years hiring people to protect me. I've never learned to protect myself. That changes now. Marcus studied her, saw determination in her eyes that matched his own. It's not something you learn in a few days. Then teach me what you can. Basic self-defense, anything that might help. Why? Because I'm tired of being helpless. Because that 14-year-old girl in the basement deserves better than a woman who just builds higher walls. Because maybe if I'd known how to fight, my security chief wouldn't have needed to die protecting me. Your security chief is alive. For now. But when Derek comes, people are going to get hurt. I'd rather be someone who can help than someone who just hides. Marcus looked at this woman, this CEO who ran a billion-dollar company, who wore power like most people wore clothing, and saw past all of it to the scared girl underneath. The girl who'd spent 4 days in darkness. The girl he'd carried to safety without ever knowing her name. Okay, I'll teach you. But we start now, and you do exactly what I say. Deal. They started that night in Victoria's office after Adelaide was asleep. Marcus taught her the basics, how to break a wrist hold, where to strike to disable without killing, how to use momentum against a larger opponent. Victoria fell twice, got up 3 times, and never complained. By dawn, she was bruised and exhausted, but standing straighter than before. Protection isn't about never being afraid. It's about knowing what to do when you are. Marcus said it quietly as he showed her how to escape a chokehold. That's what you told me, in the forest. You said fear was just my body getting ready to survive. You remember that? I remember everything. Every word you said, every step we took. I counted them. 3,214 steps from that basement to where your team found us. Marcus stopped mid-demonstration, genuinely surprised. You counted? It was the only thing that kept me sane. Counting steps, listening to your voice, believing I'd see my father again. Did you? See him again? Victoria's expression hardened. I saw him. He hugged me, cried, told me he'd been so worried. Then 2 weeks later, I overheard him on the phone talking about how the whole thing had been handled quietly. No investigation, no arrests, just money changing hands and a file sealed forever. Marcus understood what she wasn't saying. The rescue had been kept quiet. The organization that took her had been allowed to operate. Derek Rispin had walked away to plan revenge for 20 years, all because a senator wanted to avoid scandal. Your father made a deal. He made a lot of deals. That's what politicians do. But this one cost me the truth. I spent years thinking I'd been rescued by some heroic government operation. Turns out, it was just damage control. It wasn't just damage control to me. You were a kid who needed help, but you didn't know that. You said it yourself. You never learned names. To you, I was just another mission. No. You were a 14-year-old girl who counted steps in the dark. That's not a mission. That's a person. Victoria looked at him, and for the first time since they'd started this strange partnership, her mask completely fell away. Thank you. For carrying me. For not leaving me there. Thank you for trusting me now. With Adelaide. With this. They stood in the dim office, bruised and exhausted. Two people bound by a rescue neither had fully understood until now. Outside, dawn was breaking over Manhattan. Inside, they were preparing for war. The envelope arrived 2 days later, hand-delivered to Victoria's building, addressed to Marcus Lambert. Inside was a single photograph, Adelaide at Hawk's safe house, taken through a telephoto lens, and a note in precise handwriting. 20 years I've waited. 20 years I've planned. Your daughter for my son. Your pain for mine. 72 hours, Mr. Lambert. Then I take everything you love, just like you took everything I loved. D.R. Marcus's hands shook as he showed the note to Victoria. Not from fear, from rage so pure it felt like ice in his veins. He found her. He found Hawk's safe house. That's impossible. Only you and I knew that location. Victoria's face went pale as understanding hit. Unless someone in my security team told him. Or someone in mine. From the old unit. Derek's had 20 years to turn people. We need to move Adelaide, now. Too late. If we move her, he'll know we know. He's watching, waiting for us to panic. Then what do? We give him what he wants, but on our terms, not his. Marcus pulled out his phone, dialed Hawk's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice he didn't recognize answered. Mr. Lambert, so good of you to call. Your daughter is perfectly safe. For now. As is your friend Hawk. Though I must say, he's not very talkative with the gun to his head. Where is she? Safe. Scared, but safe. Just like my son was before your team killed him. Your son died in a crossfire. He was armed and shooting at us. He was 18 years old, a boy who didn't know any better, and you put a bullet in his chest. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. The mission, the senator's daughter, the firefight in the compound. He remembered a young man, barely more than a kid, raising a weapon. Marcus had fired on instinct, center mass. The boy had dropped. They'd extracted the girl and left. Marcus had never thought about that boy again until now. I'm sorry. He was in the wrong place, as was your daughter, as was Victoria Rhodes. Funny how that works, isn't it? Wrong place, wrong time, wrong life destroyed. 72 hours, Mr. Lambert. Come alone to the address I'm about to send you, or I kill them both. Your daughter, your friend. Then I'll come for Victoria, and I'll make you watch before I kill you too. The line went dead. A text arrived seconds later with an address in Brooklyn, an abandoned warehouse near the waterfront. Marcus stared at the screen until Victoria took the phone from his hand. We're not doing this his way. We don't have a choice. Yes, we do. He thinks you're alone. He thinks I'm a helpless CEO. He's wrong on both counts. Victoria, this is suicide. He'll have a team, backup, weapons, and we'll have something he doesn't expect. We'll have each other. You taught me to fight. Now let me use it. Let me help. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to send her somewhere safe, but he looked at this woman, the CEO who'd spent 20 years building walls, and saw something that terrified him more than Derek's threats. He saw Helen. Helen who'd believed in him. Helen who'd made him promise to be more than a weapon. Helen who'd died because he'd chosen one last mission over being there when she needed him. I can't lose you too. The words came out before he could stop them. Victoria's eyes widened. Marcus, I can't. I lost Helen because I wasn't there. I can't lose Adelaide because I went alone. I can't lose you because I was too proud to accept help. I can't. Then don't. Victoria took his hands. Hers were smaller, softer, but surprisingly strong. Don't do this alone. Don't be the weapon. Be the man Helen fell in love with. Be Adelaide's father. Be my partner. We'll get her back together. And if we both die, then at least we die trying. But Marcus, I don't plan on dying. I plan on winning. And I plan on making Derek Rispin regret every second of the last 20 years. Victoria's business intelligence team worked through the night in a secured conference room 3 floors below her office. 8 analysts hunched over computers, tracing Derek Rispin's financial footprint through layers of shell corporations that spiraled across 3 continents of paperwork, but always landed back on American soil. Marcus watched them work with growing admiration. These weren't security guards or hired muscle. These were forensic accountants who could find blood in water. The lead analyst, a woman named Chen, who'd put 2 Wall Street executives in federal prison, looked up from her screen at 4 a.m. We found him. 3 properties registered under different LLCs, but the tax documents all trace back to the same attorney in Delaware. 1 in Queens, 1 in the Bronx, and 1 in Red Hook. The Red Hook property matches the address he sent you. Too easy. Marcus leaned over her shoulder, studying the documents. He wants you to come there, which means it's a trap. Chen pulled up satellite imagery of all 3 locations. The Queens property is a commercial building, parking garage on the ground floor, offices above. The Bronx location is residential, an apartment complex. But Red Hook? That's an old shipping warehouse. 4 stories, waterfront access, minimal neighbors. If I were planning an ambush, that's where I'd do it. Victoria joined them at the screen. So we don't go to Red Hook. We hit one of the other locations first. And if Adelaide's at Red Hook, then we split up. Marcus, you go to Red Hook, draw his attention. My team hits Queens and Bronx simultaneously. We find her, we extract her, and Derek loses his leverage. He'll kill Hawk the moment he realizes what we're doing. Maybe. Or maybe Hawk's already dead, and Derek's bluffing. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Hawk had pulled him out of more firefights than he could count. The idea of leaving him to die felt like betrayal. But the idea of walking into a trap with Adelaide's life hanging in the balance felt worse. We need more intel. Camera footage, thermal imaging, something to confirm who's where. I can get that. Victoria pulled out her phone, made a call. 2 rings, then a voice Marcus didn't recognize. This is Rhodes. I need a favor. NYPD surveillance cameras in Red Hook, Queens, and the Bronx. Last 72 hours of footage. Yes, I know it's not public record. That's why I'm calling you and not filing a request. 20 minutes? Make it 10. She hung up. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Who is that? Police commissioner. We sit on a charity board together. He owes me for a donation that kept his precinct from budget cuts. You're using charity as leverage? I'm using every resource I have. That's what you do when someone threatens a 7-year-old girl. Marcus found himself almost smiling, despite everything. This woman who'd been terrified in her own office 3 days ago was now coordinating a multi-site tactical operation like she'd been doing it her whole life. Helen would have liked her, he thought, then pushed the thought away because it felt dangerous and distracting. The footage arrived 8 minutes later via encrypted email. Chen pulled it up on the main screen. They watched 48 hours of warehouse activity compressed into time-lapse. Red Hook showed movement, 3 vehicles coming and going, figures that might have been Derek's team. Queens showed nothing. The Bronx property had a single black SUV that arrived once and never left. There, freeze that frame. Marcus pointed at the Bronx footage. Chen stopped the playback. A figure emerged from the SUV carrying something small and wrapped in a blanket. The image quality was poor, but the size was right for a 7-year-old child. That could be her. Or it could be anything. We can't know for sure without getting closer. Then we get closer. How fast can your team mobilize? Victoria checked her watch. 15 minutes. But Marcus, they're security personnel, not tactical operators. If Derek has professional mercenaries, your people secure the perimeter and provide surveillance. I go in alone, extract Adelaide, and we're gone before Derek knows what happened. And if it's a trap? If he's expecting exactly that? Then I spring the trap and deal with it. That's what I was trained for. 20 years ago, you're not that person anymore. No, I'm better. I have something to lose now. That makes me more dangerous, not less. Victoria wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes, the way her jaw tightened. But she'd spent the last 3 days learning from him, and one of the first lessons was, trust your instincts. Marcus's instincts said Adelaide was in that Bronx apartment, and Derek was waiting at Red Hook for a confrontation that would never come. Fine, but you wear a wire, and the moment things go wrong, my team moves in. Non-negotiable. Deal. They spent the next hour planning. Victoria's security chief, the one Marcus had suspected might be compromised, had been quietly replaced by an outside contractor Victoria trusted from her father's Senate days. The new chief, a former Secret Service agent named Martinez, coordinated the operation with military precision. 2 teams of 4, one for Queens and one for Bronx. Mobile command center in an unmarked van. Thermal imaging drones that could give them building layouts without setting foot inside. Martinez spread blueprints across the conference table. Bronx apartment is a walk-up, 6 units, 2 per floor. Black SUV is registered to a shell company that rents the top floor, Unit 6B. No fire escape on that side of the building, but there's roof access through a service door. If we approach from above, too slow. By the time we breach the roof, Derek knows we're coming, and Adelaide's a hostage situation instead of a rescue. What do you suggest? Front door, fast and quiet. Neutralize any guards, secure Adelaide, exit through the ground floor before backup arrives. You're talking about a dynamic entry into an unknown hostile environment with a child's life at risk. The failure rate on operations like that is lower than negotiating with the men who spent 20 years planning revenge. Martinez, I respect your expertise, but this is what I did. Let me do it. The former Secret Service agent studied Marcus for a long moment, then nodded. Your call, but you're taking comms and body armor, and if I hear gunfire, I'm sending everyone in. Agreed. They moved out at dawn. Marcus rode in the back of an unmarked panel van with 4 of Victoria's security team, all of them armed and wearing civilian clothes that wouldn't draw attention in the Bronx. Victoria wanted to come, but Marcus had convinced her to stay at the command center with Martinez. If this went wrong, someone needed to be alive to keep fighting Derek. Someone who understood the resources and had the authority to use them. The Bronx apartment building was exactly as depressing as Marcus expected. 5 stories of yellow brick and broken dreams, laundry hanging from windows, graffiti marking territorial boundaries that meant everything to the people who lived here and nothing to everyone else. The black SUV sat at the curb like a predator among prey. Marcus checked his equipment. Body armor under a maintenance worker's jumpsuit. Earpiece connected to Martinez's command frequency. Compact Glock 19 in a shoulder holster borrowed from Victoria's armory. 2 spare magazines, lockpick set, and, tucked in his boot, a folding knife that had saved his life more times than he wanted to remember. Radio check. Can you hear me? Lima Charlie, came Martinez's voice through the earpiece. Good. I'm moving to the building. Hold position until I signal. Copy. Good hunting. Marcus crossed the street with the confidence of someone who belonged there. Nobody looked twice at a maintenance worker in the Bronx at 6 in the morning. He entered the building through the front door, no lock, just a broken latch that hung useless. The lobby smelled like urine and desperation. Stairs to the left, elevator out of order, mailboxes pried open and empty. He climbed quietly, listening at each floor. Second floor, someone was arguing in Spanish about money. Third floor, a baby crying. Fourth floor, silence. Fifth floor, movement, footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Marcus paused on the landing below the 6th floor. 1 guard at minimum, possibly 2. Professional stance from the sound of the footfalls, someone trained to watch a door. He pulled the Glock, checked the chamber. 1 round ready, safety off. Then he moved. The guard was exactly where Marcus expected, standing outside 6B with his back to the stairwell, focused on the hallway below. Amateur mistake. Never put your back to an access point. Marcus closed the distance in 4 silent steps, wrapped his arm around the guard's throat, and applied pressure to the carotid artery. 10 seconds. The guard went limp without making a sound. Marcus lowered him to the floor, zip-tied his wrists, and gagged him with his own belt. 1 down. Door still closed. He pressed his ear against it, listening. Voices inside, at least 2. 1 male, 1 female. The female voice was too old to be Adelaide. Marcus tried the door handle, locked, but standard residential deadbolt. The lockpick set made quick work of it. He entered low and fast, Glock raised. The apartment was small, living room, kitchenette, 2 doors that probably led to bedroom and bathroom. The male voice was coming from the bedroom. Marcus moved toward it, clearing corners as he went. Empty living room, empty kitchen. He reached the bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. Inside, he could see a man sitting in a chair facing a woman tied to a bed. Not Adelaide. The woman was in her 30s, duct tape over her mouth, terror in her eyes. The man had his back to the door, a pistol in his lap. Wrong apartment. This was a decoy. Marcus was turning to leave when his earpiece crackled. Contact. We've got movement at Red Hook. Multiple vehicles, armed personnel deploying. Looks like Derek's entire team is there. Which means Adelaide isn't. Marcus, you need to abort. This is a setup. Too late for that now. He stepped into the bedroom, Glock aimed at the man's head. Hands where I can see them. Nice and slow. The man didn't move. Didn't even flinch. Mr. Lambert. Right on time. Derek said you'd go for the Bronx apartment first. Something about you being too smart to take the obvious bait. The voice was calm, almost bored. The man turned slowly, and Marcus saw the dead man's switch in his other hand. A detonator wired to something Marcus couldn't see, but could definitely imagine. There's enough C4 in this building to bring down all 6 floors. You shoot me, I drop this, we all die, including the woman on the bed and the family of 4 sleeping in 6A. Where's my daughter? Safe. For now. Derek's very particular about his timeline. 72 hours, he said. We're only at 68. You've got 4 hours to get to Red Hook if you want to see her alive. I'm not playing his game anymore. Then you're not a very good father, are you? What would Helen think? Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. The man saw it and smiled. Derek told me about your wife. how you promised her one last mission, how she died while you were out playing hero. Must eat at you, knowing you chose the job over being there. And now, here you are, making the same choice again. Adelaide's at Red Hook, Mr. Lambert. Derek's waiting. If you're not there in 4 hours, he starts sending you pieces of her. Small ones first. Fingers, maybe. Toes. He's very creative. The rage that filled Marcus was cold and surgical. This man was a psychopath following orders, but he was also the only link to Adelaide. Marcus lowered the Glock slightly. Why should I believe you? Because Derek wants you to suffer. Killing your daughter quickly doesn't make you suffer, but making you choose between saving her and saving strangers, that's the kind of suffering he spent 20 years planning. Marcus glanced at the woman on the bed. She was crying, shaking her head frantically. In the apartment next door, he could hear a child's voice asking for breakfast. How many people would die if this building came down? 50? 100? Martinez, I need options. We can try to jam the detonator signal, but if it's hardwired, it's hardwired. I can see the wire. Then you've got nothing. Lambert, get out of there. We'll find another way. There is no other way. This is the play. Derek boxes me in, makes me choose. Then choose to live. Choose to keep fighting. You can't help Adelaide if you're dead. Marcus looked at the man with the detonator, looked at the woman on the bed, looked at the door that led to an apartment full of innocent people who had no idea they were sitting on top of a bomb. Strength isn't measured by who never falls, it's who gets back up. The words came back to him, his own words spoken to Victoria during a training session that felt like years ago instead of days. Getting back up meant staying alive, meant choosing to fight even when the fight looked impossible. He lowered the Glock completely. Tell Derek I'm coming. 4 hours. Red Hook. He gets me, and everyone else walks away. Very sensible, Mr. Lambert. Derek will be pleased. What about her? Marcus gestured to the woman on the bed. She's insurance. If you don't show up, or if you bring friends, she detonates along with the building. Consequences, Mr. Lambert. Every choice has them. Marcus backed out of the apartment, rage burning in his chest like acid. He descended the stairs 2 at a time, emerged into morning sunlight that felt obscene, given what he'd just left behind. The van was parked a block away. He climbed in, slammed the door, and Victoria's voice crackled through his earpiece. Marcus, what happened? Decoy. Adelaide's not here. Derek has hostages wired to explosives. If I don't go to Red Hook alone, people die. How many people? An entire apartment building. Maybe more. Victoria, he's been planning this for 2 decades. Every contingency, every angle. He's not just trying to kill me. He's trying to break me first. Then we don't give him that satisfaction. We adapt. How? He's got Adelaide, he's got Hawk, he's got leverage everywhere I turn. Because he thinks like you used to think, like an operator, like someone who solves problems with violence. But you're not that person anymore. You're a father. You think differently now. Use that. Marcus leaned back against the van's interior wall, mind racing. Derek had spent 20 years planning revenge against the operator who'd killed his son. But that operator didn't exist anymore. Marcus Lambert, the janitor, Marcus Lambert, the single father, that person Derek didn't understand. That person made different choices, valued different things, fought for different reasons. Martinez, what's the situation at Red Hook? Thermal imaging shows 8 heat signatures inside the warehouse. 4 on the ground floor, 3 on the second, 1 on the third. Vehicle bay has 2 vans, both running. Looks like he's ready to move fast. The one on the 3rd floor, size estimate? Small. Child-sized, maybe. Or it could be someone sitting down. We can't tell from this distance. That's her. That has to be Adelaide. Could be. Or could be another decoy like the Bronx apartment. Only one way to find out. How many men can you put on the perimeter without Derek noticing? Depends on how good his counter-surveillance is. If he's got lookouts, he definitely has lookouts. But lookouts can't watch everywhere at once. The waterfront has shipping containers, right? Industrial equipment? Whole block of them. Old Port Authority overflow from before they expanded in Jersey. Perfect cover. Position your team there. I go in the front, loud and obvious. When Derek's focused on me, you breach from the water side. Fast and clean, no heroics. Grab Adelaide and get out. And you? I keep Derek busy, buy you time. You'll be outnumbered 8-1. I've had worse odds. That was 20 years ago. Some things you don't forget, like riding a bike. Except the bike is trying to kill you and everyone you love. Marcus almost smiled at his own gallows humor. Martinez didn't. This is suicide, Lambert. Even if we extract the girl, Derek's not letting you walk out of there. I'm not planning to walk out. I'm planning to make sure Adelaide does. Victoria's voice cut through the channel, sharp and commanding. Absolutely not. Marcus, you don't get to martyr yourself. We find another way. There is no other way. You said it yourself. We adapt. This is adaptation. You get Adelaide to safety, and I make sure Derek can never hurt anyone again. By dying? By doing whatever it takes. Victoria, Derek spent 20 years on this. He's not going to stop. Not today, not next week, not ever. The only way this ends is with one of us dead. Better me than her. The line went quiet. Marcus could imagine Victoria in the command center, surrounded by screens and security personnel, her mind working through scenarios and outcomes. She was brilliant at chess, had mentioned it once during a conversation about strategy. This was the ultimate chess game, and Marcus had just put himself in position to be sacrificed for the queen. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, more resolved. Fine, but you don't go in unarmed and stupid. Martinez, what's your best sniper rifle? We've got a Barrett M82, 50 caliber, effective range 2,000 meters. Perfect. Set it up on the container stack with line of sight to the warehouse. Marcus goes in, but he's not alone. First hostile move, you drop whoever's closest to Adelaide. Ma'am, that's a tough shot through industrial windows. Then you better not miss, because if Marcus dies in there, I'm holding you personally responsible. The authority in her voice left no room for argument. Martinez acknowledged with a crisp copy that, and started issuing orders to his team. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Not just gratitude, but something deeper. Partnership. Trust. The knowledge that he wasn't fighting alone anymore. Victoria, when this is over, you're taking Adelaide somewhere safe and forgetting Derek Rispin ever existed. You're going to be her father, not a weapon. That's the deal. What about you? I'm going to do what I do best. Build something new from broken pieces. Maybe rebuild myself in the process. You're already doing that. Not fast enough. But I'm learning. You're a good teacher, Marcus Lambert. The van started moving toward Red Hook. Marcus checked his equipment one more time. Body armor, Glock with 2 spare magazines, knife in his boot. Earpiece connected to a team that actually gave a damn. It wasn't much against 8 trained mercenaries and a man who'd spent 2 decades planning revenge, but it was more than he'd had an hour ago. The Red Hook waterfront looked like every other forgotten industrial zone in New York. Crumbling concrete, rusted chain-link fences, shipping containers stacked like building blocks, waiting for a purpose they'd never find. The warehouse Derek had chosen sat at the end of a dead-end street, 4 stories of red brick and broken windows, a perfect killing ground. Martinez's voice crackled through the earpiece. "We're in position. Sniper has line of sight to the 3rd floor windows. Thermal confirms 1 small heat signature up there, isolated from the others." "That's your daughter, Lambert. I bet my pension on it." "What about Hawk?" "No sign. Either he's not here, or he's already dead." Marcus pushed down the grief that tried to surface. Hawk was a brother, had been for years before Marcus disappeared into civilian life, but Adelaide was his daughter. Blood, future, everything that mattered. He had to prioritize, had to make the cold calculations that operators learned early and never forgot. "I'm going in. Remember, nobody moves until I signal or until Derek makes a hostile move toward Adelaide. We get 1 shot at this." "Copy. Good luck." Luck had nothing to do with it. Luck was for people who left things to chance. Marcus had left nothing to chance since the day Helen died, since he'd held Adelaide for the first time and promised her dead mother that their daughter would grow up safe. This was about keeping promises. This was about being the father Helen had believed he could be. He walked toward the warehouse's main entrance with his hands visible and empty. The Glock was still in its holster, hidden under the jumpsuit, but accessible if needed. 2 men stepped out from behind a cargo van as he approached, both armed with AR-15s, both watching him with professional wariness. Marcus Lambert, here to see Derek. The taller of the 2 gestured for Marcus to raise his arms. A pat-down followed, thorough and efficient. They found the Glock, the spare magazines, the knife. Took all of it. Left him defenseless except for the skills burned into muscle memory and the team watching from the shadows. Inside. The warehouse interior was exactly what Marcus expected. Open floor space filled with debris and forgotten machinery. Metal stairs leading to 2nd and 3rd floors. Catwalks crisscrossing overhead. Derek Rispin stood in the center of it all. Gray hair perfectly styled. Expensive suit that looked obscene in this setting. He held a pistol like someone who knew how to use it. 20 years. 20 years I've waited for this moment. Derek's voice echoed in the empty space. "Where's my daughter?" "Safe. For now." "Where's your team? The police? The FBI? Surely the great Marcus Lambert didn't come alone." "I came alone. You have Adelaide and Hawk. I have nothing you want except revenge. So let's get this over with." "Oh, we will. But first, I want you to understand something. My son's name was Michael. He was 18 years old. He loved baseball. Wanted to be a marine biologist. Did you know that? Did you care when you put a bullet in his chest? He was armed. He was shooting at us. It was a combat situation. It was murder. You murdered my boy, and then you disappeared like a coward. Left me with nothing but grief and rage, and 20 years to plan how I'd make you suffer." Derek gestured to the stairs. "3rd floor. Your daughter is waiting. Go ahead, Marcus. Go see her. Then we'll talk about suffering." Marcus climbed the metal stairs, each step ringing hollow in the vast space. His mind cataloged everything: exit points, defensive positions, weapons within reach. The 2nd floor was empty except for more debris. The 3rd floor had a single door at the far end, closed and ominous. He opened it. Adelaide sat in a chair in the middle of an empty room, her hands zip-tied to the armrests, duct tape over her mouth. Her gray eyes, so much like Helen's, so much like his own, went wide when she saw him. Tears streamed down her face. Next to her stood a man Marcus didn't recognize, holding a pistol pointed at Adelaide's head. "Daddy." The word came out muffled through the tape, but Marcus heard it clear as thunder. He started toward her, but the man with the pistol clicked off the safety. "That's far enough. Derek wants you to see her. He didn't say anything about touching her. Is she hurt? Not yet. Scared, definitely. But Derek's very specific about his timeline. You've got 90 minutes before he starts making good on his promises about fingers and toes. Marcus forced himself to look away from Adelaide to assess the tactical situation. One guard, armed and alert. Windows overlooking the waterfront where Martinez's sniper waited. Distance from the door to Adelaide's chair, maybe 15 feet. Too far to cross before the guard could pull the trigger. But if Marcus could get him talking, get him distracted for even a second. Martinez, I've got visual on Adelaide. 3rd floor, single room, 1 guard. Can you take the shot? Negative. Window's too dirty, angle's wrong. If I miss by an inch, I hit the girl. You need to create separation between her and the hostile. Working on it. Marcus turned his attention back to the guard. What's your name? Does it matter? It does if you want to live through the next 5 minutes. Derek's planning to kill everyone in this building, you included. You think he's going to let witnesses walk away? I'm not a witness. I'm an employee. You're a liability. The moment I'm dead and Adelaide's dead, you become loose ends. Derek spent 20 years planning this. You think he's sloppy enough to leave loose ends? The guard's expression flickered. Uncertainty, maybe fear. Marcus pressed the advantage. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to untie my daughter, and you're going to walk out of this building. You're going to disappear, find a new line of work, and forget Derek Rispin ever existed. In exchange, I don't kill you. You're unarmed, you're surrounded, you're in no position to make threats. I'm a father whose daughter has a gun to her head. I'm in the best position to make threats, because I have nothing left to lose, and that makes me the most dangerous person in this room. The guard's hand tightened on the pistol. Marcus could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, weighing options, assessing risks. Then footsteps on the stairs below. Derek's voice calling up. Time's up, Marcus. Come down here. We're going to finish this. The guard gestured with the pistol. You heard him. Move. Marcus didn't move. He looked at Adelaide, memorizing her face in case these were his last moments. 7 years old. Blonde hair tangled from fear and captivity. Eyes that trusted him even now, even with everything falling apart. She was Helen's legacy. She was everything good in his life. She was the reason he'd become a janitor instead of staying a weapon. Strength isn't measured by who never falls. It's who gets back up. He'd said those words to Victoria. Now he said them silently to himself, to Helen's memory, to the part of him that had been an operator before it learned to be a father. Then he turned and walked back down the stairs. Derek waited with 3 more men, all armed. The odds were impossible. The situation was hopeless. Marcus descended anyway, because getting back up meant fighting even when the fight looked lost. Derek circled Marcus like a predator that had finally cornered its prey after years of hunting. The warehouse floor was concrete and oil stains, the kind of place where blood would soak in and disappear without a trace. 4 armed men stood at cardinal points around them, creating a kill box with no exit. Before we end this, I want you to understand what you took from me. Michael wasn't just my son. He was my redemption. I built an empire on dirty money, on fear, on things that would make most people sick. But Michael? He was going to be different, clean, better. He wanted to study the ocean, save the whales, all that idealistic nonsense kids believe in. And you killed him. Your son made a choice. He picked up a weapon and chose violence. He was protecting me, the way any son would protect his father. By shooting at federal operators conducting a lawful rescue? That's not protection. That's suicide by proxy. Derek's face twisted with rage. He raised his pistol, aimed it at Marcus's chest. His finger tightened on the trigger. Then he lowered it, breathing hard. No, Too fast. You don't get to die quick. You get to watch your daughter die first. You get to feel what I felt when they brought me Michael's body. Then you get to die knowing you failed her the same way you failed your wife. Marcus felt the words like physical blows. Every fear he'd carried for 7 years crystallized in Derek's voice. The fear that he wasn't enough, that Adelaide would pay the price for his past, that Helen had died because he'd made the wrong choices. But beneath the fear was something harder. Anger. Not the hot rage that made people stupid, but the cold fury that made operators effective. You want me to feel what you felt? Fine. But Adelaide walks away. You get your revenge, but she goes home. That was always the deal. There was no deal. I don't negotiate with the man who murdered my son. Then what do you want? Because if it's just killing, you could have done that weeks ago. Could have put a bullet in my head while I was pushing a mop. Could have firebombed my apartment. But you didn't. You wanted this. The confrontation. The drama. You wanted me to know it was coming. Derek's smile was thin and cruel. I wanted you to suffer. And suffer you have. I've watched you these past months, Marcus. Watched you try to be a good father while looking over your shoulder. Watched you fall in love with Victoria Rhodes without even realizing it. Watched you build something fragile and beautiful that I'm about to burn to ash. That's real suffering. That's what you deserve. The words about Victoria hit harder than Marcus expected. Fall in love. Had he? The partnership had felt natural, necessary, two broken people finding strength in each other. But love? That was Helen's territory, sacred ground he'd fenced off after she died. Yet Derek saw it before Marcus did, saw the way Victoria had slipped past his defenses by being someone who needed him as much as he needed her. Martinez's voice crackled in his ear, so quiet Derek couldn't hear. Lambert, we're in position. Waterside entrance is breached. Moving to the 3rd floor now. Keep him talking. You're wrong about one thing. I didn't fall in love. I chose to trust. There's a difference. Love is what I had with Helen, complete, unconditional, the kind that doesn't survive death. But trust? That's what you build with someone who fights beside you, who sees your worst and doesn't run, who makes you better than you were alone. Derek laughed, the sound echoing off corrugated metal walls. Philosophy from a janitor. How touching. Tell me, Marcus, does Victoria know you're planning to die here? Or did you lie to her the way you lied to Helen about that last mission? I didn't lie to Helen. I promised her I'd quit. I broke that promise, and look how that turned out. She died alone while you were playing hero. Now Victoria's about to lose you the same way. Some people never learn. The difference is, Victoria knows what I am. She saw me fight. She watched me train her. She understands the cost. Does she? Or does she just think you're some tragic romantic who's going to sacrifice himself nobly? Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who keeps making the same mistakes. Putting the mission before the people you love. Choosing violence over being present. Your daughter's upstairs terrified, and you're down here talking to me instead of saving her. Because saving her means keeping you focused on me instead of her. Because every second I waste with you is a second Victoria's team gets closer to Adelaide. Because I learned something in the last 7 years that you never understood. Sometimes the best way to fight isn't with your fists. Sometimes it's with your willingness to endure. Derek's expression shifted. Suspicion crept across his features. What are you talking about? I'm talking about being a father instead of an operator. Operators think tactically, neutralize threats, complete missions, move to the next objective. Fathers think strategically. How do I keep my child safe, not just today, but tomorrow and every day after? You wanted me to suffer. Congratulations. I've suffered every day for 7 years, wondering if my past would catch up to Adelaide. But suffering taught me something you never learned. It taught me that winning isn't about who's left standing. It's about who's still there when the dust settles. Gunfire erupted above them, sharp cracks that echoed through the warehouse like thunder. Derek spun toward the sound, his men raising weapons. Marcus moved. 7 years of pushing a mop hadn't erased the muscle memory. He was across the distance before Derek could turn back, driving his shoulder into the older man's ribs. They went down hard. The pistol clattered away. "Third floor secured. We have the package. She's safe. Get out of there, Lambert." "Not yet." Marcus drove a fist into Derek's face, felt cartilage crunch. The older man was skilled, twisting out from under Marcus and landing a knee to the ribs that sent pain shooting through his chest. They rolled across concrete, grappling for advantage. The 4 guards were shouting, trying to get a clear shot, but Marcus kept Derek between himself and the guns. "Kill him. Kill them both." Derek's voice was ragged with fury. Gunfire erupted. Marcus felt a round graze his shoulder, another punch through the meat of his thigh. Pain exploded, but didn't stop him. He got his hands around Derek's throat, started to squeeze. The older man's eyes bulged. His fingers clawed at Marcus's face, found his eyes. Marcus jerked his head back, lost his grip. Derek scrambled away, gasping. "You think this changes anything? You think saving your daughter means you win? I'll come for her again. Next month. Next year. Whenever you let your guard down, she'll never be safe as long as I'm alive." "Then I guess you're not leaving here alive." Marcus stood, bleeding from the leg and shoulder, facing 4 armed men and Derek. The odds were impossible. But impossible had stopped meaning anything the day Helen died, and he'd learned to change diapers with hands that used to disarm bombs. The warehouse doors exploded inward. Victoria's security team poured through, 10 operators in tactical gear, weapons raised, disciplined and fast. The 4 guards tried to respond, but they were outgunned and outmaneuvered. 2 went down to controlled bursts. The other 2 dropped their weapons, raising hands in surrender. Derek stumbled backward, looking for escape. There was none. Martinez had positioned teams at every exit. The water side was sealed. The roof access was covered. The old fixer who'd spent 20 years planning revenge found himself trapped in his own kill box. "It's over, Derek. Your men are down. Adelaide's safe. You've got nothing left." Derek's laugh was wild, unhinged. "I've got this." He pulled something from his jacket, a detonator, simple and brutal. His thumb hovered over the trigger. The Bronx apartment. The woman tied to the bed. C4 wired through the building. "You remember? I press this, 50 people die. Mothers, children, people who never hurt anyone. Their blood will be on your hands." Marcus felt ice settle in his stomach. The choice Derek had crafted so carefully, Adelaide's life versus strangers, victory versus mass murder. It was elegant in its cruelty, the kind of trap that had no good answer. Victoria's voice cut through his earpiece, sharp and commanding. "Martinez, can you take the shot?" "Negative. He's using Lambert as cover. I don't have the angle." "Then get the angle. Marcus, move left." But Marcus wasn't listening to tactics anymore. He was thinking about what he told Derek minutes ago. About fathers versus operators. About strategic thinking versus tactical. About what it meant to win. "You're not going to press that button." Derek's thumb twitched on the trigger. "Why not? Give me one reason." "Because you already lost. Your son is still dead. Killing 50 strangers won't bring him back, won't ease your pain, won't make you feel whole. You've spent 20 years chasing revenge, and all it's given you is more emptiness. I know because I spent 7 years running from the same thing. The difference is, I learned that revenge doesn't heal wounds. It just creates new ones. Pretty words, but words won't stop me from becoming exactly what you hated about me. I killed your son in combat. You're going to murder children in their beds. How does that honor Michael's memory? How does that make you better than the monster you think I am? Derek's hand shook. Tears streamed down his face, cutting tracks through the blood from his broken nose. You don't get to use my son's name. You don't get to tell me what honors his memory. Then honor it yourself. Be the father he needed instead of the killer he feared. Put down the detonator. Face justice for what you've done. Show the world that Michael's father was a man who could choose mercy even when every instinct screamed for blood. The warehouse had gone silent, except for Derek's ragged breathing. The security team held position, weapons trained, but fingers off triggers. Victoria's voice in Marcus's ear was barely a whisper. Marcus, if he presses that button, he won't. How do you know? Because he's a father, and fathers don't destroy the world their children lived in. Derek stood there for an eternity compressed into seconds, his thumb on the detonator, his face a mask of grief and rage and something else. Recognition, maybe, of a truth he'd spent 20 years trying to bury. Then his hand opened. The detonator clattered to the concrete. Martinez's team moved fast, securing Derek before he could change his mind. They zip-tied his wrists, read him his rights, led him toward the waiting police vehicles. As they passed Marcus, Derek stopped. This isn't over. As long as I'm alive, as long as I can think and plan, you'll never be safe. Your daughter will always be looking over her shoulder. Maybe, but she'll be looking over her shoulder alive, with a father who chose her over revenge. That's more than your son got. Derek flinched like he'd been struck. The security team pulled him away, and he went without resistance. A broken man who'd spent 2 decades building toward a moment that crumbled the instant he tried to grasp it. Martinez appeared at Marcus's side, medical kit in hand. You're bleeding all over my crime scene. Let's get you patched up before you pass out and make everyone's paperwork more complicated. Where's Adelaide? Safe. Victoria's got her in the command van, wrapped in a blanket, drinking hot chocolate, asking when her daddy's coming. Kid's got nerves of steel. She gets that from her mother. The medical team worked on Marcus's wounds. The shoulder graze was superficial. The thigh shot had missed the artery, but would need proper surgery. They field-dressed both, pumped him full of antibiotics and painkillers, and insisted he go to the hospital. Marcus refused until he'd seen Adelaide. The command van was parked 3 blocks away, surrounded by police vehicles and federal agents. Victoria stood outside it, still wearing the expensive clothes she'd put on that morning, but looking disheveled and human in a way Marcus had never seen. When she saw him limping toward her, relief flooded her features. You're alive. I thought, when I heard the gunfire... I'm hard to kill. Comes with the territory. That's not funny. Wasn't trying to be funny. Where is she? Inside. Waiting for you. Marcus climbed into the van. Adelaide sat on a bench seat, wrapped in an emergency blanket that made her look impossibly small. When she saw him, she launched herself forward. He caught her despite the pain, held her despite the blood soaking through his bandages, and felt something break inside his chest that had been holding tight since Helen died. Daddy, I was so scared. The bad man said things about hurting me, about hurting you. I didn't know what to do. You did exactly right. You stayed calm. You stayed alive. That's all I needed you to do. Are the bad men gone? They're gone. All of them. You're safe now. Adelaide pulled back, looked at his face with those gray eyes that saw too much. "Are you safe?" The question hung between them. Marcus thought about Derek's words. "You'll never be safe. She'll always be looking over her shoulder." Thought about the reality of living with the past, of knowing that enemies might still exist in shadows. But he also thought about the difference between safety and security, between hiding from threats and building something worth protecting. "I'm safe because I've got you. As long as we're together, we're safe." Adelaide seemed satisfied with that answer. She nestled back into his arms, and Marcus held her while Victoria climbed into the van. She sat across from them, and for a long moment, none of them spoke. They just existed in the space after crisis, when adrenaline fades and reality settles like dust. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and bureaucracy. Marcus spent 4 hours in surgery while they cleaned the gunshot wound and stitched muscle back together. Adelaide waited with Victoria in a private room the hospital administrator provided after Victoria made a phone call and invoked her family's name. When Marcus woke up in recovery, both of them were there. The government came the next morning, not police or FBI, but something higher up the chain. A general Marcus didn't recognize, but whose uniform said he had the authority to make problems disappear. He sat in a chair beside Marcus's hospital bed and spoke in the clipped tones of someone used to being obeyed. "The operation you were part of 20 years ago is still classified. Derek Rispin's arrest opens doors we'd prefer stayed closed. We're prepared to offer full reinstatement if you agree to testify in a closed hearing. Colonel rank. Salary commensurate with your experience. You'd be an asset to the program." Marcus looked at Adelaide, who was coloring at a table Victoria had set up near the window, drawing a picture of a house with flowers and sunshine and 3 stick figures labeled Daddy, Me, and Victoria. "My daughter needs a father, not a weapon. I'm done being a weapon. Your country needs... My country's had enough from me. I gave years. I gave missions. I gave the best parts of myself until there wasn't much left. Now I'm giving what's left to the person who actually needs it. My answer is no." The general's expression hardened. "You understand this means no protection? No resources if Derek's associates come looking for revenge?" "I understand. But I also understand that protection isn't something you hire or request. It's something you build, family by family, choice by choice. And I'm building something here that's worth more than any rank or salary." The general stood, adjusted his uniform with military precision. "You're making a mistake, Lambert. The world doesn't stop being dangerous just because you want to be a father."
"No, but I stopped being an operator the day my daughter was born. Took me 7 years to figure that out, but now that I have, I'm not going back."
The general left without another word. Victoria, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, stood and moved to Marcus's bedside. "That was brave. Turning down that kind of offer."
That wasn't bravery. That was clarity. For the first time since Helen died, I know exactly what I want. And it's not a uniform.
"What is it?" Marcus gestured to Adelaide, still absorbed in her drawing.
Her. A normal life. School plays and homework, and teaching her to ride a bike without training wheels. All the ordinary things I missed while I was being extraordinary.
"And me?" Victoria asked it quietly, like she was afraid of the answer.
You, if you want to be part of it. I know it's complicated. I know we come from different worlds,
But somewhere in the last week, you stopped being the CEO who scared me and started being the person I trust most." After Adelaide. "I don't scare you?" "Terrify me, but in a good way. The way jumping off a high dive terrifies you right before you realize you can swim." That's possibly the worst metaphor I've ever heard. I've been changing bedpans and mopping floors for 7 years. My metaphor skills have atrophied. Victoria laughed, and the sound was light and genuine, and everything the last week hadn't been. I have a proposition for you. Head of security for Rhodes Corporation. Real salary, benefits, apartment in a building with actual working heat. Hours that let you be there when Adelaide needs you. We've been through this. I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's payment for services rendered. You saved my life twice. You taught me to protect myself. You showed me that strength isn't about walls. It's about knowing when to stand alone and when to ask for help.
Let me return the favor. Let me help build that normal life you want.
Marcus looked at her, really looked past the expensive clothes and the corporate polish to the woman underneath. The one who'd trained in her office at dawn, who'd coordinated a tactical operation like she was born to it, who'd held Adelaide while he was in surgery and never once complained about the responsibility. I'd need weekends off. Adelaide's school is non-negotiable. She stays where she is, and I make final security decisions without board oversight. Victoria's smile was genuine, unguarded. Done. They shook hands, and it felt like something more than a business agreement. It felt like partnership, like two people who'd walked through fire, separately learning to build something in the ashes together. 3 months passed like pages turning in a book Marcus had forgotten how to read, the kind where ordinary things happened, grocery shopping and parent-teacher conferences and arguments about bedtime.
Rhodes Corporation's security had never been tighter. Marcus implemented protocols he'd learned in counterterrorism, adapted them for corporate environments, and trained Victoria's team until they moved like operators instead of mall cops. Derek Rispin went to trial in a federal courthouse with security so tight even the pigeons needed clearance. The Bronx apartment had been evacuated before anyone got hurt. The woman tied to the bed was a federal agent Derek had captured during surveillance. She testified about the C4, about Derek's plans, about his obsession with revenge that had consumed 2 decades of careful planning. The jury deliberated for 40 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Life in federal prison without possibility of parole. Marcus didn't attend the trial. He was too busy being Adelaide's father, teaching her to ride that bike, attending her school play where she played a tree and forgot half her lines, reading bedtime stories about princesses and dragons and happy endings. Victoria came to dinner twice a week, then 3 times, then stopped leaving some nights because Adelaide fell asleep during a movie and it seemed easier to stay. The apartment Marcus had worried about for 7 years became a memory. The new place was in a secure building in Brooklyn, 3 bedrooms with actual heating and windows that didn't rattle in the wind. Adelaide's room had pink walls and bookshelves Marcus built himself. The 3rd bedroom stayed empty, waiting for a future neither Marcus nor Victoria wanted to rush. On a Saturday morning in late spring, 3 people walked through Prospect Park. Marcus pushed Adelaide on the swings. Victoria bought ice cream from a cart, even though it was only 10 in the morning, and they sat on a bench watching joggers and dogs and people living lives that looked beautifully, magnificently ordinary. Adelaide swung between them, holding both their hands. "Can we get ice cream again?" "You just had ice cream. Ice cream doesn't have a time limit. That's what Daddy says." Marcus shrugged apologetically at Victoria. "The kid makes a valid point. You're a terrible influence on her decision-making skills. I prefer to think of it as teaching her to question arbitrary social conventions. She's 7. She doesn't need to question conventions. She needs vegetables and bedtime." Adelaide giggled at their banter, the sound pure and unshadowed by fear. Marcus watched her, memorizing this moment, the spring sunshine, Victoria's hand warm in his daughter's laughter echoing across grass that had seen 1,000 families just like this one. Ordinary. Perfect. Everything he'd fought for without knowing it. "Daddy, are we safe now? The bad men are all gone, right?" The question was asked with 7-year-old directness, expecting simple answers to complicated truths.
Marcus thought about Derek in federal prison, about the possibility of other enemies from other missions, about the reality that safety was never absolute, never guaranteed. But he also thought about what he'd learned in 3 months of normalcy, that safety wasn't the absence of danger. It was the presence of people who'd fight for you when danger came. We're safe, honey. Not because the bad men are gone, but because we're together. Me and you and Victoria. That's what keeps us safe. Adelaide seemed satisfied. She skipped ahead toward the ice cream cart for round 2, leaving the adults walking behind. You believe that? That we're safe? Victoria asked it quietly, like she was testing the words. I believe we're as safe as anyone can be. Derek's gone. The threats we knew about are neutralized. But there's always going to be something. A car running a red light, a fire in a building. Life doesn't come with guarantees. All we can do is show up for each other and hope that's enough. That's very philosophical for a man who changes diapers for a living. I haven't changed diapers in 5 years. Adelaide's potty trained. You know what I mean. I do. And you're right, it is philosophical. But philosophy's just lived experience with fancy words. I've lived through enough to know that the only thing worth protecting is the people you love. Everything else is just noise. They reached the ice cream cart. Adelaide ordered strawberry in a waffle cone, got it all over her face within 30 seconds, and laughed when Victoria tried to clean her up with a napkin. They looked like a family. Not the family Marcus had imagined with Helen, but a family nonetheless. Built from broken pieces, forged in crisis, made stronger by the choice to keep showing up. Do you think Helen would approve? Of this? Of us? Victoria asked it while Adelaide chased a butterfly across the grass, her ice cream forgotten. Marcus thought about his wife, about her bright laugh and her belief that people could be better than their worst moments, about how she'd loved him despite the violence in his past, had seen something worth saving underneath the operator's training. Helen would have liked you. She'd have appreciated how you don't take any of my nonsense, how you push back when I get too serious, how you're good to Adelaide without trying to replace her mother. I'd never try to replace her. I know. That's why Helen would approve. She wanted Adelaide to grow up with people who saw her as her own person, not just a reflection of loss. You do that. You see Adelaide for who she is, not who I want her to be, or who Helen would have wanted her to be. Just Adelaide. That's rare. Victoria leaned against him, and Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. They stood like that while Adelaide played, 2 damaged people learning to build something undamaged together. The measure of a person isn't whether they need help. It's whether they know when to stand alone and when to ask for it. Marcus said it quietly, echoing words from their first training session. You taught me that. Changed how I see everything. Power isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about trusting the people around you to do their part while you do yours. That's partnership. That's what we have. Is it just partnership? Victoria looked up at him, and Marcus saw the question underneath the question. The one about futures and commitments and whether 2 broken people could build something whole. It's whatever we make it. Right now, it's partnership. Tomorrow, maybe something more. But we don't have to decide today. We can just be here. Be present. Let the rest figure itself out. Adelaide ran back to them, breathless and happy.
Daddy, Miss Victoria, I saw a butterfly. It was orange and black. Can we catch it?
Butterflies are better appreciated from a distance, sweetheart. If you catch them, you damage their wings.
But I want to keep it.
Some things are more beautiful when you let them go, when you watch them fly instead of holding them still. Victoria smiled at the wisdom Adelaide didn't quite understand yet, but would someday. Marcus knew because he was still learning it himself, The difference between holding on and letting go, between protecting and smothering, between fear and faith. They walked back toward the parking lot as afternoon stretched into evening. Adelaide talked about school and friends and a book she was reading about a girl detective. Victoria held Marcus's hand. Marcus felt the weight of the last 7 years lift just slightly, enough to remember what breathing easily felt like. At the car, Adelaide climbed into her booster seat and immediately started playing with a stuffed animal she'd brought from home. Victoria leaned against the passenger door, not quite ready to leave the park. "Thank you for this, for showing me that life doesn't have to be about control and walls, that vulnerability isn't weakness. You figured that out yourself. I just gave you the tools. You gave me more than tools. You gave me hope that I could be something other than the scared girl in the basement, that 20 years of armor could come off and I'd still be strong underneath. You were always strong. You just measured it wrong. Thought strength was about what you could endure alone, but real strength is knowing when to let people in. Family isn't just blood. It's who shows up when the world falls apart." Victoria said it like she was testing the phrase, seeing how it felt. "That's right. And you showed up. For me. For Adelaide."
When everything was chaos and death and impossible choices, you showed up. That makes you family. Adelaide knocked on the window from inside the car. "Are we going home? I'm hungry." Marcus laughed. "Yeah, sweetheart, we're going home." They drove through Brooklyn as the sun painted the sky orange and pink. Adelaide sang songs from her school play in the back seat. Victoria scrolled through work emails, but kept putting her phone down to look out the window. Marcus navigated traffic with one hand, the other resting on the center console where Victoria's hand found it and stayed. Home was the apartment in the secure building. Home was dinner around a table that seated 3 instead of 2. Home was Adelaide's homework spread across the coffee table, Victoria helping with math problems Marcus had forgotten how to solve, laughter when they got an answer wrong and had to start over. After Adelaide was asleep, Marcus and Victoria sat on the balcony overlooking the street. The city hummed below them, sirens and traffic and millions of people living lives that intersected and diverged like threads in a tapestry too complex to fully comprehend. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Derek's associates to appear, for some new threat to emerge. Does that feeling ever go away? Victoria asked it while staring at the city lights. No, but it gets quieter. You learn to live with it instead of being paralyzed by it. That's what the last 7 years taught me. Danger doesn't disappear because you want it to. You just get better at facing it. That's not very reassuring. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be honest. But here's the thing. When the next crisis comes, and it will come because that's life, you won't face it alone. You'll have me. You'll have Adelaide. You'll have a team you trust and resources you've built. That doesn't make the danger less real, but it makes you more capable. Victoria turned to look at him, and in the dim light from the apartment, she looked younger, less like the CEO who terrified board members, and more like the woman learning to laugh at dinner. I love you. I didn't plan to. Didn't even realize it was happening until after the warehouse. But I do. I love you and Adelaide and this messy, complicated thing we're building together. Marcus felt the words settle around him like a blanket. Not suffocating, not heavy, just warm and present and real. I love you too. Took me longer to admit it because Helen's still there, still part of who I am. But loving you doesn't erase her. It just means I'm learning to live again, instead of just surviving. They sat in silence after that, not because there was nothing to say, but because words felt insufficient. The night air was cool, the city was alive,
Inside, Adelaide slept peacefully in a pink room with bookshelves and stuffed animals and drawings of houses with 3 stick figures.
Not a family born, but a family built. Brick by brick, choice by choice. And that was enough. That was everything.